and I'm just falling apart. The moment I left the show last week, I completely forgot all about it. I just banged it really hard, no phrasing. Just slightly more people than listen to the Hard Rock Lunchbox every week. Like, does it really mean what I think it means? First of all, it's not even the Word of God. Hey, this is what happened. And then the next guy being like, that's not what happened. Let me tell you what happened. The early Catholic Church was having none of that female nonsense, and they're all sausage party. Does that sound like something Jesus would say? Because I don't remember seeing that in there ever. If you want to be a complete dick about it, if you're listening, Jesus, we need a kinder, gentler world. To be perfectly honest, we're animals. It takes me seconds to be that good person. They bring over cookies every Christmas. I mean, like, what's not to like? It's going to be a great day, people.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome once again to the Hard Rock Lunchbox. And if you're watching on Strangerhood TV on YouTube, welcome to the Top 20. It is a getting better out there, May 8th, 2025. And I'm just falling apart. It's, for those of you playing the DJ's allergy game at home, my allergies have now morphed into what it feels like a light sinus infection. I'm not entirely sure, but if I had to put my breath and money on it, I would say that's the case. You might hear me wheeze throughout the show. It's going to sound a lot like that very often. I know I was saying that I just wish the allergies would leave the top of my throat and either go up into my head or drop into my chest so I could start coughing them out. Well, I didn't actually count on them doing both of those things, so here I am overachieving again. Thank you so much. It's going to be a light top 20. I am having a lot of trouble just keeping my eyes open because they are very swollen, so it might just be better to go with music today. I am not even sure. It is Thursday, right? Let me just double check. Yeah, May 8th. It's Thursday. Yeah, all right. So we did that. I also realized I did not. Those of you last week will remember that I called this a mouse. It's a trackball. And I will also tell you that the left clicker button that I was having a problem with, the moment I left the show last week, I completely forgot all about it. I have not been on this computer since. I've been on my Mac doing recording stuff, so I have not used this trackball. So immediately as I turned things on today, I was like, oh yeah, guess what still doesn't work? So I just banged it really hard, no phrasing on the desk. So hopefully that fixes it. It won't, but I figured I would give that a shot anyway. I will I'm already winded. Haven't done anything whatsoever, and I'm already winded. It's going to be a great day, people. But that's okay. There's nobody in the chat, so that's good. So there's nobody. If there's nobody in the chat in the woods and a tree falls down, does a bear still like honey? I don't know exactly what that was. I forgot to do my light housekeeping this week, so I'll just read this kind of like off my phone because there is a new video out. The Top 20 is out today on Strangerhood TV. The episode is called 988, and I talk about the importance of the suicide prevention and mental health crisis hotline. That's 988. Please tell people that need it. That's cool. It's very cool. I also talk about the missing 600th box. That was my fault. My allergy agenda, which I just referenced just now, and the problem with lefties. Yeah, lefties are a weird thing, man. I don't know how to go much further than that, but lefties are kind of an odd thing. So I'm really trying to shy away from as much politics as possible because it's not good for the show. It doesn't really solve anything here, but like I've been trying to just stay out of it. Just kind of like for my own mental, not health necessarily, but my own mental rest from it all. So I'm trying to do that. So I don't have a lot to report. I am aware of a couple things, but most importantly going on in the world right now is that there is a conclave going on in the Vatican City in Rome because our former Pope Francis has passed away, so now they're going to elect a new pope. If you have not watched the movie Conclave, I recommend it. I do not recommend it highly, but it was good, and it's certainly timely, and, it's got a pretty decent twist at the end, but it was well acted at the very least. It's not as fascinating as the stuff like Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code, where they represent the Catholic Church and stuff like that. That's way more interesting to me, and probably to most people. But it was still an interesting kind of movie, but it's just timely, and it was actually funny to have watched it, and then you're actually watching the news. It's like, there they are in their red dresses and the funny hats doing exactly the same thing. So it's life imitating art, I suppose, as opposed to the art that was imitating life. So that's interesting, but it's a big deal, right? Arguably, the Pope, while not quite in its heyday, is still the leader of 1.6 billion Christians, or whatever the number is. Like, just slightly more people than listen to the Hard Rock Lunchbox every week, and nobody elected me anything. So, that's how important he is. So it's going to be interesting. I know the current front runner. I mean, I gotta say, I don't know this for sure, but there's got to be betting on this, right? Like, if you can bet on all this other stuff with online betting, I'm sure you can bet on who's going to be the Pope. But the current spoken favorite is this guy from the Philippines, which I think would be super interesting to have. I think they said it would be the first Asian Pope, which is, I don't have a problem with that at all. I guess for me it would be more about mental, when I picture the Pope, I picture the pastiest of pasty white guys, right? Because there's been a few popes in my lifetime. I do remember Pope John Paul. I feel like that is my first pope of my mental awareness. And he was Polish, and therefore as white as you can possibly get. And then they had, I don't know if there was somebody between him and Ratzenberger. That guy was a Hitler Youth dude. That was a real interesting choice for sure. And then there was Pope Francis, who by all accounts was a very progressive and liberal pope, and that is by those standards. Let's not get ridiculous, but he poped the Catholic Church in a way that I always found to be fairly pleasing, and fairly made sense, and kind of closer to the teachings that I was always taught about Jesus. Because as much as I make fun of people that say they're good Christians and super religious, especially people on the right, and I'm always you guys remember when Jesus just let all these poor people die, we don't need to give them food stamps? Yeah, because he never said that. Now, I was not a kid that was forced to go to church when I was little. I was raised Presbyterian? I forget. Protestant. And then I converted to Lutheran in my adulthood. And there's a funny story behind that. If you're ever interested, feel free to ask me when you see me, because it is a funny story. But I was not somebody that had to go. I did not have to get I wasn't even baptized. My parents were not strong into religion. I used to go on the high holy days, mainly because they were fun, right? We'd go on Easter, we'd go on Christmas Eve sometimes, and I did that into my adulthood. I haven't been in years, and it's really just a time thing. I don't have it. Although these days I'm probably more anti-neighbor than I ought to be, and that would probably be the main reason. I'm not interested in my community anymore. My community, to me, is not defined by where I live. It's defined by the people I interact with. And I feel like anybody that knows me and knows this show knows that is probably pretty clear about the way that I do things in the world. So that's my community. And I guess if there was an online service church thing that I felt comfortable doing, I would do that. But still, most of my studies into Catholicism and a lot of other religions actually came in college, because I found it very interesting. At Stony Brook, I was forced to take what was called a SOAC. It's Study of Another Culture. And the course I took was a study on Confucianism and Taoism. And I had a professor. He was probably, I don't even know if he was a full professor. He was definitely an advanced grad student, if nothing else. And he made that course so goddamn interesting that I wanted to study more And that wasn't, Confucianism, Taoism is barely religion, right? It's definitely way of life kind of stuff, but it's not really religion. Like Confucianism was the teachings of Confucius, and he by all accounts was just a really wise dude. And then Taoism, while kind of the teachings of Lao Tzu was more about your sort of natural way in the world. And in fact, Tao, which is actually this charm right here, means the way. And it was actually really nice. A couple of weeks ago, I had an Asian family over, and the mom actually read my necklace. She's like, "Oh, that means the walk." And I was like, "Yeah, it's supposed to be Tao, the way and stuff." Like, and I do firmly believe in it. She's like, "Oh yeah, Tao," because she didn't think I would know the word Tao, I guess, because I'm just as white as I can possibly be. But I will say there was a part of me that appreciated some confirmation from a native Asian speaker. I mean, she's Japanese, so she didn't speak Chinese, but I mean, I think she's seen it and could speak it enough. But because I'm always amused by people get, Asian calligraphy tattoos or whatever. And I'm always wondering if, does it really mean what I think it means? Does it mean what you think it means? Because sometimes it's just really stupid. And as somebody that has, water here, there, water and actually balance and stuff, and it's changed from the character. I modified the character, but that's what it means to me. But who knows what it means to your average Korean at this point? And I did ask them, but I'm honestly afraid to get the answer. So anyway, I studied all that stuff in school, and I found it so fascinating that I would go further in my studies, and I actually took a course on actually the Bible, and not necessarily so much like biblical studies or even Catholic studies. It was more about, sort of how to read the Bible, right? Because I have this conversation with people all the time, because while there are adults in the world that know the difference between fiction and nonfiction, although I don't know that they even teach that anymore in school, because I know plenty of people that can't remember what the difference is. But fiction is fake, that's how you can remember, and nonfiction is supposed to be true. But, most books are actually, fiction, they're stories and stuff like that. And I love when people tell me that the Bible is word for word the Word of God. It's first of all, it's not even the Word of God at all, because God didn't write it. At best, it's a story about the things that were going on in sort of biblical times. I think it was Louis C.K. that I heard this joke recently that just made me completely laugh out loud, because he's talking about the 4 Gospels of the Bible: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And when you read those, one of the things that we studied was all the contradictions that are in those stories and stuff, because there's a lot of perspective. Also, they didn't write them, right? Historians kind of agree that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did not write these. They're disciples, they're interns, if you will. Plato was to Socrates, they're Padawans, if you want to go all Star Wars about it. They would write those years later. I think that the earliest gospel is something 165 years after the death of Christ. So, not exactly newspaper, this happened last night, Mr. and Miss America and all ships at sea kind of stuff. It was just, these are the stories. But the Louis C.K. joke was great, because it was basically all the 4 gospels really are some dude being hey, this is what happened. And then the next guy being that's not what happened. Let me tell you what happened. And then the third guy being that isn't what happened either. Let me tell you what happened, which is so great. So even if you honestly believe that all these things were the actual Word of God and facts, you have in the Bible itself and the Gospels all these discrepancies. Plus, I believe it was St. Augustine that just decided which Gospels were going to make it in, and not all of the Gospels got there. In fact, that what was the movie? Not Roseanne. Patricia Arquette was in it. I think it was called Stigmata, where the whole story is about the lost gospel of Jesus, because that apparently exists and did not make it into the Bible. There is a Gospel of Mary, and the early Catholic Church was having none of that female nonsense, and they're all sausage party books. So But anyway, so the classes I was taking were basically teaching you how to read the Bible, like how to see like allegory and story and all that other stuff, and just going from there, which I thought was good. But it gave me a very handy understanding of not only what I was reading and how to read it, but to identify when other people weren't reading it and weren't reading it properly. I mean, the best pastors I've ever had were the ones that could read a passage from the Bible and then tell you, in their words, in their life, how things went, how things apply. And that always, to me, seemed like the most useful. It's like the number of people that think the golden rule is in the Bible, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's not in the Bible. I mean, there's references to being a good person. There's certainly references where Jesus talks about lest he amongst you without sin cast the first stone. There's always that. And I love bringing that one out personally. It's one of my favorite ones to shoot up people on the right that are just hating other people. Because I mean, let's be honest here. How many truly pious people do you know, and how many of them are really sitting very socially conservative these days? I mean, the whole current plan for a lot of conservatives, and a lot of the reasons the election went the way it did, is because a lot of white people are really tired of migrants getting all of our social services. I mean, now at its simplest form, hey man, I don't want these people that don't deserve this free food to get free food. Does that sound like something Jesus would say? Because I don't remember seeing that in there ever. I mean, you can get to the man shall not lay with another man, but that wasn't even Jesus either. That was and there was a lot of that going on. But if you want to be a complete dick about it, I mean, seriously, the man shall not lay with another man. But, at the end of Sodom and Gomorrah, the two daughters, tricked that old dude into sleeping with them so that they could repopulate the earth. I know a slut when I see one. Actually, that's not true, but I know slutty behavior when I see it. And that seems kind of weird. I mean, I knew my father a long time. I never once thought I would repopulate the earth with him. That dude was gross, for starters. And honestly, I hope I'm just as gross to my kid, because that feels like something I should do. So, it feels like that's something I could do in this world. But anyway, so yeah, the conclave is going on. They're going to pick us a new pope. As a non-practicing Lutheran, still, a Christian in there, it doesn't really matter to me, other than there's a lot of public opinion in the world that goes the way the Pope goes. So all I can really hope is, if you're listening, Jesus and cardinals, all 160 whatever of them, is try and look at the world around you and figure out who's going to best serve that world around you. Do we really need another hardliner that's going to condemn homosexuals to death here and then hell in the afterlife? Does that sound like something we want to do? We need a kinder, gentler world, and I don't think that that's going to be coming from politics. And while I don't ascribe a lot to the moral failing and decline of Western civilization, I do acknowledge that without some semblance of good in the world and what it looks like and some sort of moral guidepost, that people will just defer and default to their natural, innate tendencies. And to be perfectly honest, we're animals. And some of us definitely act like animals more than the rest of us. That's why so many people are like, no, this is mine. This is not yours. That's something you see in the supermarket, right? This is the best I'll take this for my family. Where you see it, those feel-good stories where, neighbors get together and help out a neighbor, that shouldn't be a rare, human interest story. That really, if you're going to be a good person, and certainly a good Christian, that should be kind of your everyday, and it's simple stuff. When I walk in the neighborhood and I see somebody's garbage can blown in the street, I'll pick it up, I'll put it over by where I assume their driveway is, and I'll just be on my way. It takes me nothing. It takes me seconds to be that good person, and I'm not here to preach to anybody. But, I'm also somebody that believes that, for, something as simple as universal health care, because people are like, why should everybody get health care? Why should we pay for everyone's health care? And I'm like, we should all pay for all of our all of our health care, because in this country and hopefully on this planet, we don't aspire to be a people that let other people just die in the street from like bronchitis or pneumonia or something that's treatable. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take all that much to be a good person, and believe me, it does not take all that much to be a bad person. I'm just kind of worried about like the natural sort of tendencies for people to be bad versus good, and I think it's important to have a spiritual leader of 1 point whatever billion people be a good person and espouse good ideals and ideas. And maybe the rest of the world also pays attention to that, because if somebody makes good sense, then maybe they'll make good sense enough that other people can see this. Like, I'm not saying that love thy neighbor has to be like, I love my neighbor, because I have a couple of neighbors I can't freaking stand. I'm a big fan of the neighbors to my west, though. I like them. I like them a lot. I like them. I like their kids. They're funny. They make me laugh. They bring over cookies every Christmas. I mean, like, what's not to like? You know what I mean? But, you know, just to dumb it down for everybody, like, just be good to your neighbor. Be good neighbors. And not even just your neighbors. Be good people. Let people get into traffic. Like, don't yell at somebody that's not making a turn fast enough for you. Like, be patient. Like, be patient and be better. And maybe the world needs something that can... sort of a lightning rod for good behavior. And while I did not come here to talk at all about the conclave or the Pope, like, as I'm talking, I realized that maybe that's really what we should shoot for. And if any part of my audience is a praying part of my audience, why don't we just kind of lean into that? And let's hope that the conclave decides on somebody sort of genuine and generous and somebody that's absolutely for good in the world. And I think that would be a great thing. So I've talked enough. I feel like my sinus meds are kicking in a little bit more, so I'm starting to get a little more dopey than usual. So I think I'll get on with some music, and as always, we start with some local stuff. And while Connecticut isn't super local, it's local enough for me. It's certainly easier to get to than the far side of the city, so I think it counts. Plus, this band's been on the box since the beginning, but their latest was one of my favorites of their entire collection, so I figured I'd go with Bizarre from Mile Marker Zero, and we'll just kick it off that way.